Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video I'd like to give you 7 tips on how to choose your potted Christmas tree. So first of all, you want to think about the species of the Christmas tree. There's several different types. Here in the UK it's nearly always the Nordmann fir that's on offer, and that's generally the best one you can go for. Nordmann fir, which is this one here, has nice soft needles. The needles are normally dark green as well, and they don't drop very easily, so they really hold on to needles very well indeed. Now you can also get noble fir. Noble fir is a bit rarer, but the noble fir tends to have slightly more bluey or turquoise needles. Again, they're nice and soft and they don't drop too easily, but you get a much nicer fragrance with the noble fir. So if you want something with a bit more fragrance, go with the noble fir. You can also get spruces as well. Quite common in the UK is the Norway spruce. That one isn't the best, although it is the traditional Christmas tree. Unfortunately, the needles drop off very easily and they're also very sharp. Now there's other species out there as well, especially if you're in America, but generally if it's a fir, it's going to have soft needles and they're not going to drop easily. If it's a spruce, they're going to be sharp needles and they will drop easily. So tip number 2 when picking a Christmas tree, you want to have a look at the general structure of the tree, and you want to try and find one that's nice and bushy. It is up to personal preference how bushy you want it, but generally when it comes to these potted plants, because they have to be grown inside a pot, you're going to get much smaller Christmas trees. This one, for example, is just under 1 meter in height. So that's about the size you'll get in the UK. Other countries you might get slightly larger ones, but generally they're small. So you want to get a bushier plant if you can to get the most tree for your money. They'll all be a standardized height, but as I say, width-wise they will vary quite a bit. So you want to have a look at your tree. You want to give it a rotate around. You want to make sure it's mostly even. You can see this one here. It's looking quite a bit wider on this side and narrower on this side, so this might not be the most even of trees, but we'll have to find out when we open it. Unfortunately, when it comes to the wrapping process, sometimes some bits can get really squished, other bits less squished, and so it's hard to tell what your tree is looking like. So if you can, ask in the shop if you can cut the netting off and have a look at the tree without the netting. That will give you a much better idea of the shape of the tree, because when it's netted like this, there's not much you can do to tell what the tree will look like. You want to find one that's fairly even, so it's not like lopsided, and ideally you're looking for one with branches throughout and an even spread. But as I say, get that netting off if you can. That's the only way to tell 100% how your tree is going to look. So tip number 3, you want to have a look for any damage on the tree. So when these are transported, they're quite often damaged, so you want to make sure you don't have any damaged sections of your tree. Check the top, that's the most easily damaged section. You can see on this one here, for example, there's a little bit of damage because some of the needles are missing. Quite often when they're transported, people just lift it by the top of the tree. That will often scrape off a lot of the needles. So try and find one that has got the needles left. The rest of the tree doesn't normally suffer as much damage, but still have a look. Make sure that there's not any damaged sections anywhere or any cuts. So step number 4, what you want to be looking for is the color of the tree. Pick the darkest looking tree you can find. Generally, if the tree is unhappy or is going to die soon because the roots have been disturbed, this tree will start to look a paler green color and start to go yellow. So this one here is a nice deep green color. Bear in mind that a lot of these trees have different shades of needle underneath. So you can see here the underneath is quite a pale color. You want to look at the top of the needle to get the true color of the needle, and you want to make sure it's a dark green. So if you're looking throughout the different trees, pick the one which is the darkest green color, and you definitely don't want any with any dead foliage. So just have a look, make sure there's no individual branches that are going yellow. If there are, it might mean that the branch is damaged, and when you get it back home, that branch is going to fall off or it's going to be dead soon. So just have a look, make sure that you got plenty of needles and they're all a nice dark green color without any obvious signs of damage. So step number 5, what you want to do is give the tree a good shake. A lot of the firs, this won't cause any needles to fall off, but some of the spruce, if the needles start falling off at all, definitely don't take the tree. So give it a good shake, make sure there's no needles falling off. You can see this one here, we have a few needles. It is common for 1 or 2 just to fall off, but if you got multiple falling off, don't pick that tree. Pick the tree which has the least number of needles falling off. What you can also do is any branches that are coming out of the netting, you can just run your fingers up and down it, make sure all those needles are nice and secure. You can give them a little tug as well. You don't want any needles to come off loosely. If they come off loosely now, they're definitely going to start dropping a lot of needles once you get them home. So step number 5, what you want to do is very difficult with some of these trees, but you want to work your way into the netting here. Find out where the root system is. Often they'll have a plastic bag as well, so you've got to work your way through that plastic bag, and you want to check the soil. This one, for example, is bone dry, so that is really not good. What you're looking for is damp soil. A lot of the times in the shops, the plants will come in with damp soil, They'll be left in the shop in a warm area, they'll dry out quickly, and the assistants won't be watering the trees. And if the trees get very dry, that will cause the trees to weaken and probably die on you. So you want to make sure that the tree you're buying is damp. If the tree isn't damp, find a different one. If none of the trees in that shop are damp, you really should be looking at a different shop, because unfortunately, if all the trees are bone dry, they probably won't last you much longer than if it's a cut Christmas tree, unfortunately. So definitely make sure that you check inside the pot and it's nice and damp. And finally, tip number 7, when you're checking the pot, make sure there's no large roots sticking out. Often when these are transplanted into the pots, they're just dug out the field. And if there's any large roots sticking out, that's not going to be in the soil. It's not going to be getting the nutrients and water it needs. So just have a look, make sure there's no large roots sticking out. If there isn't, then you're good to go. And that's the 7 tips for picking your Christmas tree. If you're interested in how to look after your Christmas tree over Christmas or how to plant it in the garden, please check out my other videos.